Once it works. Okay, here we go.
Got it.
And there's usually a little bit of delay going on, so let me just make sure we're actually live in the Facebook group. I always want to double check this deal. And not there yet. Let's try it again. Let's see. We're going, boom, boom, boom. System lot flying through the interwebs, right? Again, there. The series of tubes, right? Let's go. And there we go. Now we are actually live.
Nice.
Let me hit the record button.
Yep.
All right, folks. We are here. We're back for another episode of this. Maybe this is a show, podcast show, a group cast, whatever you want to call this. I love bringing interesting people from the industry to talk, have a conversation about interesting topics to you folks, real estate agents, loan officers, investors, agency owners. And today we have a really awesome guest, Walter Key. I know Walter through EXP, my EXP organization, through Agent Mafia. So I've known Walter. I've seen his content online. He's very active on Facebook. So he's been great, and he's been active within our group. So he's been in a bunch of threads, adding a ton of value to folks. So, one day I said, hey, Walter, you seem like a really interesting guy to talk to. Why don't we chat, right? I have you in the group, and I want to ask you some great questions about, how to teach and coach agents for performance. And, Walter suggested this topic, which immediately, caught my attention. Like, hey, prospecting for your personality type. Like, oh, that sounds like a really good conversation to have and kind of unpack that and kind of drill into what that means. But first things first, Walter, why don't you do a quick intro? Who is Walter Key? How did you get into real estate? How did you get into coaching? Tell us, man, go for it.
Yeah. So basically, I'm just a schmuck in a Hawaiian shirt. I actually wore the same Hawaiian shirt that was on the intro, so everybody would recognize me. So you're welcome. It's actually one of my favorites. My daughter gave this to me for Father's Day, so I've been wearing it out. Got started in real estate years ago now. I've been in real estate for decades, right? I've been licensed some years, but I was doing real estate for decades. I spent 21 years in the Navy. And early on, I learned the value of real estate. So every time the Navy transferred me somewhere, usually within a 2 or 3 year period, I would buy another piece of real estate. Right. And so
I have met several, and you guys get an amazing VA benefit. You can roll that over to the next. And I'm like, that is, but you know what? Walter, be honest, man. How many people do that? Because it seems like it's 1 in a million, and there's like 2 million of you guys.
It's sad, but it's not that many, right? So a lot of military folks, they're going to come in somewhere 2 to 3 years, they're out the door, and they get it in their head that, well, I'm just going to rent because I'm only here a couple years. And I'm like, you're missing this beautiful opportunity to build wealth over a 2-decade career. Come on. Yeah, so 100%. What I typically did was anytime the Navy moved me, and sometimes even within a move, like I bought 2 properties inside of 2.5 years while living in the same place in Nebraska, just because it worked that way. And then I had those for rentals forever. So I would either buy my primary residence, knowing that I got to force some equity because in a couple of years I'm going to resell this, or I would buy the primary residence knowing this is a temporary investment that I'm going to live in for a few years, and then I'm going to turn it into a long-term rental. So I always just...
So you adapted the strategy. You didn't have like a cookie cutter. No. It was depending on the market, right? What market is it?
You got to go with what makes sense at the time. But I always bought my home with the understanding that it was a short-term residence that would eventually become an investment, but I got to live somewhere anyway, and the Navy lets me do that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So there was a point where I had 4 or 5 different properties in 4 or 5 different states, and they were short-term, all long-term rentals. And then as I got out of the Navy, I liquidated those, and I became, I started diving more into the short-term stuff. But it's never, in a 21-year Navy career, buying a piece of property to hold for a couple years to turn into investment has never been a bad idea. And it boggles me when I hear someone say, well, I'm only here for a couple years, I'm not going to buy a house. Take advantage of the opportunity while you 100%. Can. It's amazing. Anyway, so I had been doing that for decades. And I knew when I retired from the Navy, I was going to get my license. I was going to do real estate. It was a no-brainer. But getting a real estate license when you're transient obviously didn't make a ton of sense to me, right? I buy investments, absolutely. Building a new business while you're active duty Navy, not so much. Okay. And so what happened was I was living in Central Virginia. The Navy transferred me, brand new market, didn't know anyone, no sphere there. They transferred me in, and less than a year later, my wife and I decided this is our spot. We're going to just retire here in Central Virginia.
You liked it.
I'm in Florida now. That didn't work out, but nonetheless, that was the idea, right? That was the
Keeping
idea.
it real. Keeping it real.
So,
this is what actually happened.
I put in my retirement paperwork way in advance, but I knew really I had about 3 years when I made the decision to go into real estate. I had about 3 years left on my Navy contract. So I started my real estate business while active duty Navy. I was on shore duty as fairly regular office kind of hours. And my goal was very simple. I'm going to take 3 years to build my business big enough that when I retire, I don't feel the difference of income. I can move from active duty Navy to retired Navy. My family doesn't have to change.
3 years ahead of time. That's
Right?
that's hardcore. This is like,
So
this is like
here's what
military
happened.
planning. This is planning.
Well, I've always been a long-term planner, right? So at age 15, I decided I was going to join the Navy. I knew exactly what I was going to do, and I started planning for it.
That's crazy.
I'm just, it's a gift. It's a little bit of a curse too, but it's a gift to be able to think past tomorrow, past next week, past that next commission.
Focus.
It'll change your world when you can really start to dream bigger and then make plans to move you in a direction. And we can talk about that in a minute. So 3 years to do from no business whatsoever in a brand new market to enough real estate income to supplement my active duty to retired pay gap. That was the only goal.
All right.
Okay. My first full license year, I made more money in real estate than I made it after almost 18 years in the Navy. And I kind of chuckled and I said, all right, well, this is going to work just fine. When can I retire?
We're probably going to be
But
okay.
a very, very interesting thing happened. Over the next couple of years, I became the #1 agent in my office, top 3% of my entire MLS for closed transactions as a solo agent, mind you, no TC, no admin, just me, and getting ranked against multi-agent teams, large real estate groups, anyone who was closing a deal, right? I'm ranked against them, top 3%, while holding down an active duty job.
That is crazy, man.
No brainer, right? Some of that was discipline, right? The structure that I built, the long-term thinking, the
100%.
goals, clear plans of execution, things like
And
that.
you treated it as a job too, right? I mean,
Oh,
again,
absolutely.
no knock on agents, but I went from the corporate world into real estate, and it was kind of shocking to me that when I get there, 8:30, not super 8:30, 9 a.m. and I'd stay in the office. If I didn't have any appointments, I'd stay there doing work, doing prospecting, lead generation until 5, 6 p.m. And no one did that.
No one.
I was the first guy in, or one of the 2, 3 guys in, and I was the last guy out. And that wasn't even hard hours for me. Like I was 10 years in the corporate world, right? And it's not the military, but you know what I mean, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You've got struck all this, and you're like, this is what you do. You put in I went from software to real estate, so I put in 70 hours a week was normal for me. Yeah. I go down to 50 when I go into real estate, and I go, this seems really easy to me. So that you're going from somewhere that has an expectation. You got discipline. You have a discipline, and you go. So it's not. I mean, again, that's pretty surprising you're able to pull that off. But it's not insane to me because you're going from some place that has a lot of structure. But the sales part, Walter, because the Navy doesn't teach you that, right? It doesn't teach you like to relate with people.
Well,
what's up with that?
They don't teach you sales, obviously. But here's what I learned very early on in life. Real estate isn't about sales. Real estate's about relationships, right? At the end of the day, if I can just connect with people, establish a relationship, and then nurture the relationship with some sort of systematic automated follow-up program, when they were ready to do business, I was the one. No brainer, right? Now, did I do a lot of prospecting? Absolutely, right? Disciplined in my business growth. I always tell people in real estate, as I'm coaching agents, if you treat your business like a hobby, you're going to get paid like you have a hobby. And that's just the truth, right? If you can get an agent to understand you are the CEO of your business. The day you got your license, you became the CEO of your business. No one else is going to tell you what to do. You're the boss. You have to choose to do it. And you got to build your schedule. You got to know what your goals are, and you got to go execute your business. A lot of agents don't get that. And so that's part of it, right? That's the structure piece. So what happened is I'm running circles around everybody. I'm having a great time. I'm just serving people well, very quickly built relationships. And I started doing great business, top 3% in the MLS, all that fancy stuff. So naturally what happens is all of the other agents in that market start saying, hey, Walt, love to take you to coffee. Pick your brain a little bit. What are you doing? We see your numbers. Where'd you come
Came
from?
like a bat out of hell.
Right?
What's going on, right?
And so I was spending, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 times a week, usually an hour having a cup of coffee with a new agent or an old agent. I literally, no kidding, I had a cup of coffee with an agent in my office who had been in the business for 35 years because I wanted to pick her brain. And she said to me at that table, Walt, I don't really know if there's anything I should tell you. I should be learning from you.
100%.
And that's when it dawned on me, like, maybe I'm doing something different here, that maybe I just assume everyone's working as hard as me until you realize they're not. But anyway, so I'm taking people to coffee. I'll never pass up free caffeine, right? And what I noticed was they were all kind of asking the same questions. What are you doing? How are you doing it? How are you managing your schedule? How are you able to be this successful while also holding down this other job? And I started to realize, as I was essentially coaching these agents very casually over coffee, they all had the same basic problem sets. They all had the same, they were all looking for the same solution, which was, I want to be successful, but I really don't know how to get my hands around this thing. And that's kind of what led me down the coaching path. And then there was a point where I said, okay, now it's time to scale this so that I can have this conversation with more agents and I don't have to charge them for a cup of coffee, but I can get to more people and help more people. So that's kind of how it all got started.
Got it. I love that, because, it's a very organic kind of a creation, right? And that transition is crazy because I actually know of members of my family in California that are, current or former active military. That transition is not easy, man. Going from the military, to civilian life, a lot of people struggle with that, right? And it looks like this, supercharged your career, which I think is awesome. So, and you're in Virginia, you're having success with that. What brought you to Florida? Was it COVID? Was it what happened there after that?
It was mind-boggling, right? My wife, I married my wife early on in my career, so she's been with me almost the entirety of my 21 years, right? Right about the whole 21 years, and she was born and raised in Tampa. And every time we were up for orders, every single time it was time to move, she would say to me, I don't care where we go, just not Florida. Anywhere but Florida. I don't want to go back to Florida. I hate the sweat. I don't want the humidity. I don't care where they can send us to Alaska, just not Florida. Okay, I've never lived in the same house longer than 4 years my entire life. I don't care where we go. I can build a business anywhere. It doesn't matter to me one bit, right?
That's crazy.
So we always avoided Florida every chance we got. Now, we did temporarily wind up in Florida because the ship that I was stationed on in Japan actually did what they call a home port shift. And we did come to Florida for about 18 months or so. And then we moved to Central Virginia, right?
That's crazy.
But our whole decades of hearing anywhere but Florida. Okay, so we get to Central Virginia. We fall in love with the Blue Ridge Mountains. And my wife's like, I think this is it. Let's retire. And I said, let's retire. She came home for a family funeral after I had retired. And mind you, right, understand the background. She's born and raised in Tampa, so she had a lot of family here already. A lot of her family from Oklahoma migrated to Florida. A lot of my family migrated from Missouri to Florida. 90% of all of our families are here in Florida now.
Crazy.
So she comes home for a family funeral, spends about a week here, her and my teenage daughter. They come home to Central Virginia. My wife's like, we need to talk. And I'm like, oh, what'd I do? Right. And she says to me, it was so amazing getting around the family again. Emma got to meet her cousins. That was just so great. I think we should move to Florida. And I went,
like, for real?
One more time? What was that? And she said, I know, but I really think we should move to Florida. And I said, okay. She said, do you want to talk about it? We just did.
No need.
And this is what I told her. I said, I'll do real estate anywhere you want to go. So it was a very quick transition. My wife said, if we go to Florida, I want to be on the water. I don't care what water. I just want to be on the water. So we looked at the ocean, the St. John's, so we wound up on Lake Brooklyn, beautiful little spot in Northeast Florida. We bought the house. I moved December of that year because I couldn't find a contractor to wrangle the remodel. It was an old house that needed to be updated. I moved in with my aunt, who's 8 minutes up the road. I wrangled the remodel. And from December 28th until March, I was here wrangling a remodel while my family was still in Virginia. And then we all moved in March of 2022. We moved in, we sold that house. We started, selling off other houses, and it all worked out just fine. But it was just funny how it happened. So imagine this for anyone who's listening that says, I don't have a sphere, I'm new to the market. I sold, hear this, people, hear this. I sold my first listing before I ever moved to Florida permanently.
Nice.
In Florida.
I love that.
Don't make an excuse that, well, I'm new to the market. I don't have a sphere. I don't go build a sphere. It's not that difficult. So
100%.
I was still
love that.
in Central Virginia. I was doing a 12-hour drive back and forth once or twice a week to wrangle the remodel before I moved in. And I picked up my first listing while sitting in Virginia because I'd already migrated all my presence over to Florida, started actively prospecting in Florida, and picked up my first listing client. And I was like, oh, you want to meet next week? Yeah, sure. Next week's great. What day? Yeah, I'm totally available. I'm putting it on my calendar right now. Hey, honey, I'm driving to Florida again. I got to list this house. And I made a 12-hour drive.
That's hilarious.
And I listed the house. So
yeah, I love that. And Walter, the story is really resonating with me because, funny how things work out. Where I am right now, I'm a little further, south in Florida. Yeah. I'm in central Mexico here. The only reason I'm here, because I'm one of those guys that, can work from anywhere right now with my company. Only reason I'm here because my wife's family's here, right? Nice. And now my dad lives here. Now my mom is here. So, I'm like, I ultimately, when you can choose where you want to live, the number one thing that tends to drive people is that connection. Where do you have more connection? Where do you have that? Where are you going to be happier? And for a lot of people, the answer is family. It's family one way or the other, right? It's either I want to be closer to my family or I want to be farther away from the family. Either way, it's family. Either way, family's driving the decision. 100%. Is that connection and that affinity? I love that, right? Because I totally understand what you're saying. And I lived in Seattle for the longest time. My wife and I lived there, originally from Mexico, moved up. A little bit of a change, right? But I built my business there from zero. And but when the time came, the opportunity came, I said, hey, where do we go? She said, there's only one thing I want. I want to move back to Mexico. My hometown. And if we can run a real estate business from there, let's see, right? The real estate business, I still close about 20 deals, not living in the US, by the way. Yeah. So Walter, what you're saying is like, pick up the phone and deals happen, right? I was not physically present in the US, other than for my client events. I would fly back to Seattle to do a class or a client event or something for my sphere, right? Yeah. And I was able to close 20 deals, not living in the country. Just FYI, that it absolutely can be done. The physical presence thing, it's a plus, not a requirement for quite frankly, for real estate.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I resonate with that. I totally understand where you're coming from. So let's fast forward to this topic of today. Let's talk about that. So as you're educating agents, as you're going through this experience of restarting, rebuilding your business, multiple locations, you're doing it, you've made it happen. I'm guessing you're putting into practice a lot of these, tactics and strategies you tell teams. What is this concept of prospecting for your personality type? Because when I hear the word prospecting, I'll be really honest with you, I think pound the phone, cold call, boom. Let's talk that. Let's get some sellers. Let's talk to FSBO Expire. That for me is prospecting, but prospecting for your personality type makes me think you're taking a broader definition of that.
Right. So the reason when I say prospecting, you think FSBO's Expired's landlords, is because you're a conversationalist. Yeah. You like that interaction. That's what you do. So that prospecting style already fits your personality exactly, right? It's your personality type, your communication style, your business philosophy. So the concept is really pretty simple. Like I wrote this book first. I wrote The Startup Agent. Me and Ray wrote this book to help as many agents as we can. There's an entire chapter about prospecting. And there's a lot of ways to do this business, right? So the concept is really simple. As a coach, I'm not really coaching you if I tell you what to do, right? I built a great business having conversations with people as well, right? I structured my calendar. I made calls multiple times a week as I worked that time out. There's other things that I've done as well, but I love having conversations with people. But coaching an agent on how to be successful, if you just say, well, I called FSBOs 3 times a week, go. You're not coaching anybody. You're just telling them what worked for you. That's really shallow and short-sighted, and it's not effective. That's what most mainstream coaches do, but it's not effective. Right? Do what I did because it worked for me. I'm not you. And so what I do when I'm coaching an agent on this, the first thing, right, there's some high level stuff. There's some foundational stuff, right? So I walk everybody through what I call a yearly business goal tracker, right? It's a 1-page document, but that 1-page document will tell me exactly where you want to go, how many deals you got to close to get there, what's our trackable milestone that we're going to go back and analyze our business with every month so we know we're on track. Then after we've laid that foundation and we talk a little bit about time management and goal planning, how do I put this on my calendar properly so that I can go execute? Then we start talking about, now I know the why, I know the what's the how? What am I actually going to do to execute my business? And that's where prospecting for your personality type comes in. And so what I do with the agents is I literally walk them through a mini personality assessment. Right. And we're actually writing a second book right now called Prospecting for Your Personality Type. And so
it's a great topic.
It'll
man.
dive a lot
I'd read
deeper
that
into
book.
this.
I would read that book. I'm like, oh,
but I asked things like, are you introverted or extroverted? Are you fun or are you serious? Are you friendly or are you professional? And a lot of people are like, I can be both. One of those comes to mind immediately. Are you friendly or are you professional? Right. And I walk through this series of questions to understand the kind of person they are, what makes them tick, how are they going to logically build a relationship? Once I know that, now rather than me sit here for 7 days telling you all of the great ways I know how to do business, we can call FSBOs, landlords, expireds, we can door knock, we can do this, we can host community events, we can do volunteer opportunities, we can host first-time homebuyer seminars, we can build a YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram, blah, 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 right? Why would I spend hours wasting your time to teach you something you're not going to do? Let's just talk about what you are going to do. And then I'll teach you how to do that really well. And now, rather than trying to figure out, I got 24 options. I got to learn 24 options just to know which one I want to use. No, we don't need to do that. And so I wind up talking with people about the different categories of prospecting, right? So I break it down. We're going to break it down a little bit more fidelity in the book, but really I break it down into 3 categories right now. I call it the conversational style, the professional or educational style, and then the friendly or relational style. And obviously there's some blend over, but imagine if right before we started talking about 24 different lead generation strategies, I took the time to get to know you and understand what you like, how you operate, how do you communicate? Are you passive? Are you aggressive? Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? Are you a people pleaser? Are you analytical and data driven? Or are you friendly and fun loving, right? Now with knowing your personality style, I can talk about the lead gen strategies from the perspective of, let's talk about the 2 or 3 things that you are most likely to enjoy doing, be good at, and therefore get a much higher ROI on your efforts while actually going and doing the thing. You don't have to fight against yourself and grind, right? Because a lot of people, when they think lead gen, they think, oh, here we go. I got to grind it out and do the work.
And there's a lot of coaches that go, hey, what is it? No pain, no gain.
It's a numbers game.
Just fight through it. No one likes it. No one. It's right. like lean into the pain. That's a good thing, right? That feeling is necessary. I think there's a lot of coaching around that.
And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with stepping out of your comfort zone. Obviously, that's where growth happens. That's a good thing. But you don't want to live outside of your comfort zone, fighting yourself to do something because someone said do it. That's actually not effective in your business. And it'll crush you, mentally and emotionally eventually. And so instead, let's say I'm talking to someone like you as an example. I can already know that we're going to talk about the conversational lead gen categories first. We're going to talk about FSBOs, landlords, expired listings, building strategic partnerships with your CPAs and estate attorneys and financial advisors, divorce attorneys. You're going to go talk to potentially retirement communities and talk to the marketing director and do that. You're going to go door knock your neighborhood because you're going to get great face-to-face conversations that can turn into business, right? Those are the kinds of things we'll probably talk about because they make sense for you. Now, if I had somebody that said, I'm not really analytical, I'm not a data-driven guy, I'm real friendly and bubbly, and I'm out there doing my own thing, great. I'm not going to talk to you about a YouTube channel. That's a very professional, educational format that doesn't fit who you are. Let's not waste your time. I'm not going to tell you that first-time homebuyer seminars are probably the great thing for you because, again, it's an educational mindset to do a first-time homebuyer seminar. You want to go out there and have fun and be bubbly and make friends with people. Great. Let's talk about the friendly and relational category. Let's talk about TikTok and Instagram, not from an educational perspective, because you can do social media from the educational front as well. But let's just talk about how we leverage your TikTok and Instagram so people get to know the friendly, bubbly person you are. Let's talk about community events and volunteer opportunities. Not that you're going to go jump into one. Let me teach you how to lead one. Let me teach you how to create a volunteer opportunity based around the things you like already. Oh, you're a dog lover? Great. Let's talk about exactly how you can go to your local SPCA, tell them you want to host a volunteer opportunity at their facility, ask them what they need. If I brought 10 volunteers in here in 3 weeks, how could we serve you better? Right? Get the info, you go build that event. You put it on all your social, you put it on Eventbrite, you set up a sign-up sheet, and you start marketing that, hey, we're going to go volunteer at the local dog pound because they need our help restocking supplies or walking the dogs, whatever it is, right? And now you're immediately going to start attracting like-minded people with the same interests that you are going to have a captive audience with for hours at this event. And of course, the moment they sign up, I'm going to get their name and email. I'm going to go find them on my social. I'm going to go friend them. I'm going to Instagram them. I'm going to DM them. I'm going to Facebook. I'm going to say, hey, saw you signed up for my volunteer opportunity. I can't wait to meet you in person. Let me know if you have any questions before. Right. And you're going to go create an avenue of lead generation based around what you like and your common interest and how you like to communicate with people anyway. Right. And you can do your community appreciation events fit really well in that relational category. Once a quarter, I'm going to do something in my community. I'm going to bring other business owners together and cater food and just let the community come through and meet their local business owners. I might sponsor a local sports team and put my banner up at the ball field, but I'm going to physically be present at the games and really dive into that. Or I like playing kickball. I'm going to go create a kickball league in my community. And I'm going to put it all over my social and I'm going to market it out there. And I'm going to say, anyone who also likes kickball, come play kickball with me. I'm going to put that together. Now, I use kickball as an example because I happen to know a guy who's done a couple 100,000 GCI from his kickball league that he runs.
That's hilarious.
It's viable. It absolutely works, right? You can host a poker night if you like playing poker. You can host a dart tournament if you like playing darts. You can host a chess club if you like playing chess. Get around people in the format you want to get around them. And when you build the relationships, that will turn into business for you in the future. You don't have to pound the phones and cold call expired listings if you hate being on the phone with somebody. You're not going to do it well anyway, because you're going to fight yourself. You're going to force yourself onto the phone. And then that negative energy, that negative attitude is going to come through the conversation. And as soon as that person on the other end of the call realizes you don't want to be on the phone with them either, it's over.
Got it. No, totally makes sense. And it makes sense. It's resonating with me, Walter, because I was thinking, hey, so how does this apply to my business? When I was an active agent, I remember, based on what you're describing, for example, like door knocking was one of my favorite ways to do lead generation because it was, it had required very little preparation. They just had some flyers from the open house or the just listed or just sold.
Just go.
Print it out, boom, and just go, right? Have a lot of conversations very quickly. And that was always a great open houses, similar kind of a situation. Boom, 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 quick interaction. Calling my sphere was always my highest income producing activity. Yeah. It was not easy for me to do though. Let me just tell you, I could door knock 100 doors a day. no problem, not even break a sweat probably. But doing those calls to the Sphere and attending and doing that event was hard for me. That was challenging. I would be worn out after a 1 hour event, 2 hour event. I'm like, man, I could knock, 100 doors and or sit down on the automatic dialer, talk to 100 people, right? The bold 100. If people don't know what that is, that was something I could do, and that was not that hard for me to do at all. But I'm thinking about that, like it's probably related to what you're describing. What if you're doing an activity that's not aligned with your personality type, do you think it's fair to describe it's just going to take you 10 times more energy to do it? It is more taxing. It was harder. It was harder.
Well, and think about it from this perspective, right? We know there's empirical evidence, there's several studies. We know that most agents fail, right? Sure. And I would argue there's only two reasons. I've said this from the dawn of my real estate. There's two reasons agents fail. There's a knowledge gap. There's execution gap. That's it. Yeah. Everything else falls under one of those two. So if I teach you the wrong thing, you still have a knowledge gap.
Yeah.
If I teach you the wrong thing really well, you'll still have an execution gap because you're terrified to do it.
100%.
If you're not going to execute, a little cliche here, knowledge without execution is like a boat in the sand. It might be cool to have, but it's not taking you anywhere.
Correct.
Right? Correct. You have to be able to go execute and run your business. And if the thing I showed you on how to grow your business petrifies you, you're not going to do it most of the time, right? The vast majority of agents are simply not going to execute.
Yeah, 100%.
And if they do, they won't do it well. So that's
I think a lot of agents struggle with that. I don't think they realize it though. I don't think they feel. I think they blame themselves. There's a lot of self-loathing. There's a lot of depression. There's a lot of disappointment. Yeah. I think if you framed it this way, I think it would be. Again, everything is about, it's not just the information you give people. If people just lack information, then you'd actually stumble upon the right information, you'd be good to go.
Exactly.
I think this model of the personality type, I think it'd be very useful to make it land for them. Like, hey, let's find something that's easier for you. Let's find something that's like more aligned with what you enjoy doing. I have heard that term. Find the lead generation you enjoy. I'm like, okay, well, how? There's a third.
Yeah, it helps. Well, here's the funny thing. Right. It's almost psychology at this point, but when I'm doing these coaching calls and I'm saying, okay, well, are you this or that? Don't think about it. Just tell me, are you this or that? Okay, perfect. That or this. Yep. Okay. That or that. Okay. Got it. This or that. At the end of that, I say to them, this is my favorite piece of it almost. I say to them, in your own words, I want you to imagine for a moment, Gus, I want you to imagine that you're a product in the grocery store. You're just sitting up on the shelf, chilling out with the chips and dip, waiting on someone to buy you, okay?
That's awesome.
Every product in the grocery store has an ingredient label, right? From the most prominent ingredient to the least, here's what's in me. Here's my product. And so I tell them, I said, imagine for a moment you're a product. If I was reading your ingredient label, right? Your unique personality traits, your communication style, what makes you you, in your own words, tell me the first 5 ingredients I'm going to read.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I've literally had agents take 10, 12 minutes to give me 5 words. Why? That doesn't mean that they've done anything wrong. They've never actually paused to think about who they are as a person. They're just out there. Hey, I heard this gal's doing great doing this. I should do that. Oh, I heard this guy's killing it on TikTok. I guess I should have a TikTok channel. My coach said cold call. I guess I should suck it up and call FSBOs. They've never paused to really reflect on who they are as a person, how they want to communicate, what aligns with them. And so that I've literally had agents take 10, 12 minutes to give me 5 words. And at the end of that exercise, right? It's funny. Like, I love it. I was on a call just with a guy, I won't name his name, a wonderful guy. And when he jumped on the call with me, he's like, well, I've been with, I won't name the name, a very large, everyone would know the name if I said it, a very, very large, popular coaching organization for 11 months. Okay. Wow. 11 months he'd been paying this coaching program. He spent an hour with me. And at the end of the hour, he said, Walt, can I take a selfie with you? Sure, bro. Why? And he said to me, this was the most valuable thing I've received my entire career in real estate, including the 11 months I've been with this coaching program.
Holy cow.
It's not that I'm amazing, right? It's truly not. It's not me. It's the agent coming to the realization that there's a way to do this business that they actually will enjoy, and they don't have to fight against themselves, and they can go be very productive and enjoy it. When you give them that, that's powerful, right?
It's you know, it can be very counterintuitive on that end too. So I mean, 100%. Actually, you're reminding me of someone I just interviewed this person in the group. This probably was like 3-4 weeks ago. You know, a TikToker out of Edmonton, right? So way up there, you know, killing it on TikTok. His business, I thought that was really interesting. His business started to get sidetracked, go down, you know, just completely went downwards, down the tubes the moment he got a real estate coach. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Unpack
What's
that.
the
What
coach
happened,
telling you
right?
to do, right?
The coach told them to hit the phones, door knock, and that TikTok thing is a distraction. And I was like, this is where you were getting on your business. He goes, yeah, but that's not a serious lead generation source. That's not a real. No, you got to like cold call.
Yeah.
Want to build a real business? You got to do it this way, this way, this way, this way. A very dogmatic approach, or what you described as this worked for me, hence this is the way to do it, right? So,
Yeah.
but we're describing a more nuanced approach. This takes some nuance. This takes some a little bit of
self-reflection.
Self-awareness, right? So self-reflection, that can be uncomfortable for people. That's not, I don't think that's necessarily easy, or you have to show enough interest in the other person to learn what they're, help them through that, you know, through that journey. So I can imagine, you know, Walter, some of these sessions are half therapy, you know, a self-discovery first, right? Because if you don't have that part of the conversation, you're not going to land the second one, right?
Yeah.
Which is the strategy, the execution, the tactical. You got to start at that strategic, who am I? That can be an interesting question for some folks. And then what is the best, you know, lead generation method for me to implement? So question for you, Walter. So let's say someone, you know, is a relationship style person. They are, you know, the best thing they can do is just meet enough more people and get them in their sphere, work that database. But something happens, an external factor can hit, right? For example, the market shifts, right? Transactions are down in this country, the US, anywhere from 20 to 30%. And when I published this the other day, a guy in Silicon Valley says, mine are down 50%. And I say, so some markets are even more extreme than that. Transaction count is down, even though prices are actually inching up, which is, I think, is crazy.
Yep.
Transaction volume is down almost 30% for the country. And if you're talking to our friends in Canada, they're down like 40% from the peak about 18 months ago. What if things change? How does, you know, using it, because I'm sure this has been your conversation for the last year with people you coach. This is in real time, this has been happening. How do people take that? This is my personality type, and I want to do this kind of prospecting, this kind of lead generation.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because here's what I walk everybody through, right? When we get to the part of, right, we've already done goal planning. We know where they want to go. We've broken down the metrics. We know what business they got to do. Then we start talking about which strategies are you going to execute. The first thing I'll tell somebody is you don't want to try to do everything, because you won't do anything well, right? I have on the Word document that I use to walk them through about literally 25, 26 different things. You can't do 25 things well. You can't do 10 things well, right? So I use this analogy, and I'm sure other people have come up with it. I probably adopted it from somebody. So if you're listening, whoever that somebody is, I'll give you credit. I don't know who you are, but I probably heard it from somebody else.
You planted the seed, right?
I tell them, I want you to think about your business for a moment like a table. You ever seen a one-legged table? And most of them are like, no, not really. Right, because it'll fall right over, right? It's not functional as a table with only one leg. It's unstable, right? Your business is the same way. If you only have one leg of business and that lead generation strategy dries up, you have no business.
Right.
We can't operate that way. But have you ever seen a table with 6, 7, 8, 9 legs? And they're like, nah, that sounds weird. Right. Because now the legs are just in the way. They're affecting the functionality of the table. Same with your business. If you're trying to do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things, you're not doing any of them well. So we got to drill in. And so what I typically tell people is the sweet spot is somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 things, maybe 2 to 3 things. Let's figure out what your 2 to 4 legs of your business are going to be. So let's say FSBOs and landlords are 1 and door knocking is 2. And you also you love getting out in the community and having conversations with people. So we're going to host volunteer opportunities and we're going to do community appreciation events. So bam, there's 4 different things. They're all from the aspect of having great conversations and building networks with people, but it's 4 distinctly different things. So if, for example, there's no FSBOs in my market anymore, they all just kind of dried up. Every other agent decided to go call with Walt, and now all the landlords and FSBOs are gone, right? Well, I can still go door knock my neighborhood. I can still host volunteer opportunities in my market. I can still do community appreciation events in my local community. So I lost 1 leg, but the other 3 are still producing me business, right?
I got it.
And so I always go with that.
One. It's not just one. Just because you're using your personality type to drive that, it's more of a category than a single strategy.
It's categories of lead gen, and you got to pick. There's, like I said, that sweet spot is let's get somewhere between 2 to 4 that align with who you are, that makes sense to you, that you will put on your calendar in advance, deliberately on purpose. And then you'll wake up Monday morning, crack your knuckles, and you'll go to work on those 4 things. And if something changes in the market dynamic and one of those goes away, or even 2 of those goes away, you've still got business coming in from the others. Now, you could theoretically double down on the couple that are still working, right? That's the other thing I tell people is, if you do it my way, you don't have to, it's just Walt Key's way. But if you build out a yearly business goal tracker and you walk this through with me, I'm going to tell you, build out your week in advance, 7 days early. I usually tell them Sunday evening because it's a quiet point. You can think about what you want to do. Build out your entire week in advance on purpose, put it on the calendar. This is the day, this is the hour, this is the activity. Build your success in advance. All you have to do is go execute. Now we're going to do that 4 weeks in a row. And then we're going to come to what I call a monthly milestone. That's the metric that we decided moves our business where we got to go. Maybe it's 2 deals a month. Maybe it's 1 deal a month. Maybe it's 6 deals a month. But there's a milestone that we're going to track every single month because we're not going to let our business get away from us.
100%.
So I do that prospecting for 4 weeks. I look at my monthly milestones, right? And in real estate, we do this 2 ways, right? We look backwards. Did I close enough business to hit the milestone? Yes or no? It's going to stare you in the face. No excuses. Then we're going to look forward. Am I under contract to close at least enough to hit the monthly milestone? Yes or no? If the answer is no to either one of those, I didn't close enough or I'm not closing enough, then when we go build out our week in advance, again, that Sunday, we have to do one of 2 things. There's only one of 2 things that has to happen. I either have to do more of the business building activity because I did not generate the results I wanted, and therefore I have to do some more, or I've got to get smarter with what I'm already doing to generate a higher ROI on the time I'm already spending, right? For most agents, when they first start this, the first couple monthly milestones, if they're going to make adjustments, we're going to do more, right? So as an example, let's say I walk through with an agent, we're going to make phone calls, right? FSBOs, expireds, whatever it might be. Do more traditional cold calling stuff as an example. And they say, okay, well, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I'm on the phones. I'm committed. I'm putting it on my calendar. I'm going to do it. I got the script. Walt gave me his tools. We're going to crush this. And then the monthly milestone comes around and you say, well, my goal was 3 deals a month. And I've only closed 1 last month and I'm only under contract for 2 next month. I'm not hitting the goal, not hitting the milestones. So when I go back to the calendar, well, I had Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for an hour. Can I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 2 hours? Can I do more? Or do I have to tweak my conversation? Do I have to go back and say, let's work this script a little bit. Let's role play some exceptions I've got. Let me get smarter with what I'm doing. For most people, I can squeeze in an extra hour and double my results because I'm getting results. I'm under contract for 2 deals. I'm not quite 3, but I'm getting results. Let me do more, and therefore I get more results. And that's it, right? Don't have only one thing, 2 to 3, maybe 4 legs of business, and always be looking at your business every single month. Check. Am I under contract? Did I close enough? Am I hitting the milestone that I built in advance? And if I'm not, don't make excuses. Go back to the drawing board and find time to do more or get smarter with what you do. And that's the secret sauce.
100%. I love that, right? Because it's really going to be, it's about those micro adjustments. I don't think it's, I think a lot of agents, they struggle with this, making that adjustment, because if something's not working, they're not getting the result they want. I don't know why, but they want to change the category. No, I gotta be doing, TikTok now. No, I gotta be doing Facebook leads, or, heaven forbid, I gotta go pay Zillow to solve my problem now, right? That they're jumping through all these different categories, and I go, hold on, right? I think a more nuanced approach is, hey, is this even working? Is this producing good conversations,
Right.
or appointments, or not enough transactions, but some transactions, right? Then why don't you just double down on what's producing for you? I think not just agents, I think business owners in general struggle with that, like, because it's boring.
Well,
think that's
it is
the main
boring.
issue.
It's monotonous. It's a discipline. So it's a discipline factor. I talk a lot when I talk about time management and goal planning, the difference between motivation and discipline. A lot of business owners, real estate especially, but any business, we're chasing the shiny object. What's the easy magic bullet to get me where I want to go? And if somebody pitches us right, I can get motivated about that thing and I'll pay you to give me that thing. But at the end of the day, I'm not
Entire
disciplined enough to
businesses are
execute
built on
that
this.
thing.
Entire
right?
businesses are built on that instinct, 100%.
I use a marathon analogy, right? I'm a former marathon runner. I loved running, but on Friday afternoon when I'm watching the Olympics, I'm ready to run. Like, heck yeah, let's go. But it's not time to run.
Right.
Run time for me while active duty and a day job was 3:45 a.m. in Omaha, Nebraska in the winter at -20 degrees.
Dang.
You think I'm motivated at 3:45 when it's -20 outside? Nope. But the discipline creates the lifestyle that I want. I have a goal. I know I want to achieve it. I got to put in the daily work to get there. Real estate's no different. What's my long-term vision? I need to make an annual goal that walks me in that direction. And I need to break that annual goal down all the way into the individual daily action items I'm choosing to take to accomplish the goal. Nobody cares if you're motivated anymore. You built your success, have the discipline to execute it. It changes the game. It's hard, right? It's hard to
Not
get
easy.
people in that habit. But here's what here's another funny scientific fact. On average, it takes someone 3 weeks to build a habit. On average, it takes about 3 months to turn that habit into a lifestyle. So if you're trying something for a couple weeks and it's not working for you, don't quit and cheat yourself. Keep working at it until it becomes more natural for you. Once you've built the habit, it's going to get easier. And once you continue to refine the habit, you're going to wake up one day and go, oh, that's just what I do. I don't even know why I never did it. I do that now. It's a lifestyle. And so if you can align what you know is right for you and then just be disciplined with the consistent action, game changer. Nothing can stop you at that point.
I love that, Walter. Thanks. And one last question to close it out. I want to be respectful of your time. And maybe this has been exacerbated the last 12 months with the shifting market, perhaps. But what are the biggest pitfalls for agents? What are the top ways agents get in their own way and they do not execute? They do not make the adjustments that they need. They do not gain that discipline that's necessary to have success, not just in real estate, I think in any project you take on, right? What are the pitfalls? What are the big mistakes? I don't know how you want to phrase it, but what are those big things that agents need to avoid if they want to navigate this shifting market? There's still going to be 8 to 9 million sides this year, by the way, right?
Yeah.
It's a shifting market. There's less business. There's less business, but there are 8 to 9 million sites. That's always out there. How can agents sabotage themselves to not see that and get that opportunity?
You got to change the mindset a little bit, right? Turn off the TV, turn off NBC, turn off MSNBC, because as an example, right? I'm a data-driven guy, right? I have always been able to show my clients the rationale behind their emotional decision. We want to sell our house because there's an emotional life event. Great. Here's the data that supports you being able to do it. I will bring the rationale to your emotional decision. As an agent or any business owner, we have to drive the data and the logic and not the emotion. So as an example, oh my gosh, the Fed just raised the rates again. Oh, I can't believe 2 years ago, we were at 3%. We're more than double. Crack a chart. We were we were never below 5% until the crash of 2009, which we literally rewrote laws to ensure would never happen again. And until recently, we were never back above 5% because the Fed was putting their thumb on interest rates. If you think you're going to be back at sub-5 interest rates next year, you should probably just hang up your license now, because you're not driving the logic. That is not going to happen. Help your clients understand the data. Hey, listen, I know we're at 6.5. I know we're at 7. Historically, that's still pretty low. And I realize it feels rough because we were just at 3 a couple of years ago. But let me show you from 1950 to now, there was only this little window where we were ever below 5.
Yeah.
And I know it's not fun, but this is, if you're waiting for a crash, you're going to wait yourself out of income. You're going to wait yourself out of equity. And here's what's going to happen. If the market goes from 7% to 6.5%, all those buyers who decided to wait because they were scared are going to dive back in, drive the price up another 20%. Do you want 20% equity in your home? If you do, go ahead and buy now and wait for a 0.5% drop. And you're going to make 80 grand in equity because everybody else was running off of fear and emotion instead of data and logic. Now, we counsel our clients this way. Sometimes we need to sit down and counsel ourselves this way.
100%.
Get that fear out of your head. Get that emotion out of your head. People still need homes. People still need to sell. Divorces happen. Marriages happen. Children happen. Job changes happen. Medical emergencies happen. No interest rate will ever change the need for housing. So set that aside, go look up the charts, right? Know the data for yourself so you can speak intelligently and be the logic train behind their emotion. But when they say, hey man, we got this thing and it's scary because we got to move, but crap. Hey, listen, take a breath. Let me show you the data. It's not that bad. Let's put you in the right position.
Especially if they're getting informed by cable news. I mean, I think one of our main jobs, and I think even Gary Keller said this, we have to tell people what's happening locally because the chances that they are woefully misinformed are very high, unfortunately, right?
Florida is a great example of that.
100%. I love that. That's exactly. Because they're getting news out of California and New York, right? That dominate the media, obviously. And like what's happening in your part of Florida.
When I tell somebody, hey, listen, we live in Florida, 300,000 a year net migration. Every single year, 300,000 people are moving here. Oh, and by the way, this is Florida, #1 destination for Canadian investors, #1 destination for Colombian investors, #2 destination for Chinese investors who spend about $6 billion a year in US real estate. In Florida, this stat just came out, 24% of all of the international investments happen in Florida. We always have a housing shortage. We always have that's the market. Our market's always hot. Even if it's quiet in Scranton, Ohio, or Modesta, California, Florida has 300,000 people moving here every year, competing with 1/4 of all the investors of the world buying up their real estate. Our market keeps going up. Things keep selling. It's okay. Understand the market you're in. And let's find the best solution to the problem. Well, let's work through it. You got to move. Let's move. You'll be okay.
You see a lot of agents get caught up in those headlines. They get they make those headlines be their destiny, kind of a situation like that.
Well, listen, I say it all the time. I use the term self-licking ice cream cone, but it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? As an example, we got a couple more minutes. I cannot stand. I think the actual data was from like 2014. It is a little dated. The 5-year metric, right? NAR put out a survey, I think 2014, that said 87% of agents will be out of the business within 5 years.
5 years.
80% of that is 2. Everybody knows that stat. And so when I'm trying to coach an agent, I'm trying to help somebody, I'm writing a book to help them grow business better. I hear all the time, well, listen, doesn't matter what you do, 87% of them are going to be out. 80% are gone in 2 years. No, our industry has created a self-fulfilling prophecy, because imagine this for a moment. I'm the broker, you're the agent. Man, 87% of you are going to walk right back out the door in 2 years. I won't invest time or money or energy teaching you how to do this business correctly, because you're going to quit anyway. Then you show up starving for knowledge. You never learn how to grow a successful business. And then what happens? Well, what do you know? 2 years later, you didn't renew your license. And the broker says, just another statistic, 87%. Teach them how to grow a business and they won't quit at that rate. The Carbon Club, my organization, is a perfect example. I ran the numbers not too long ago. We have about an 80% success rate as opposed to an 80% failure rate.
There you go.
It's not me. I'm not amazing. I'm not some super genius. I'm slightly smarter than the average IQ. It's because we're giving them the knowledge and the tools to go execute their business. And most people, when given the knowledge, will execute.
I hear, and that's a great point, Walter, because you're right. That's the statistic for the overall population. I would love to see a statistic, and maybe you've already done this, of the adequately trained and coached agents. I would bet you whatever you want that it's not 80%.
But it's tough, right? Because
adequately coached and trained.
The brokers don't invest in training and resources because they just have succumbed to the idea, well,
they might not know how to do it themselves.
They don't know how. The coaches out there, most of them, there's some good coaches, most mainstream coaches, do it my way because I did it 30 years ago. Suck it up. It's not supposed to be fun. Just grind it out. I'm not going to execute with that. Teach me what I need to know to do it my way, or I'm not going to do it. Well, I'm going to fail because I didn't learn how to do it my way. But if you line up that knowledge in a way that they can go, yeah, absolutely, this makes sense to me, I will execute this. Changes the game. You will have a percentage that don't execute. Sure, you can't help everybody, but you can dramatically change the trajectory of the industry by aligning the right knowledge to someone and then showing them the tools and resources on how to execute it. Game changer.
Love it. Awesome. Walter, thank you so much, man. It's been a great conversation. This is pure joy for me, talking to a practitioner, someone that's, in the trenches with these agents. So appreciate your time sharing this with the community. Walter, if someone wants to continue the conversation, and learn more about, your program, what you do, what is the best way for people to reach out to you and continue that conversation?
So I'm pretty easy to find. My first name is Walter, which is fairly rare, and my last name is K-E-Y. I was born for real estate, right? The easiest way to find me is on Facebook, but I am everywhere. I'll tell you what, I'll drop my link tree in the chat of the Facebook, just so people have it. Coaching program, the book, all my contact, email, phone number, it's all there.
Right.
If you just look up Walt Key, you'll find me.
Okay. Awesome. Sounds great, man. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll have you back, right? When the new book is out. I love having people when they've got books out here talking about that. So the topic is really interesting to me. So would love to see the finished product. So yeah, definitely, Walter. Thank you so much.
Awesome, man. Good times.